Hey, what's up, everybody? Patrick here, Everyday Machinist. Right now, we have our Haas HRT 210 SP on the bench here. I got to go over and clean it. We had a couple issues with an alarm code for a high load on the motor. I think it was, we had like a 106 and we had a 111 code. I found nothing wrong internally except on the brake side, which is this side. There was a heavy amount of corrosion in here. This is not my favorite version. Being that it's the HRT 210 SP. And what that is this side here is the platter, okay? This side is the brake. Well, on the SP, the electronics in the motor cover it. So it looks like a big cube. Great for space or, saving space and, smaller machines. I bought this unit used years and years ago. And I guess they just ran dirty air to it because by the time I was running it, eventually that moisture got in. And it could be other factors too, leakage past the O-rings, whatever. But there was some significant crust and crap. This is all rusted. So I broke it down. Probably not a beginner job to do, but there is no load or thrust or anything on it. How the worm gear works here, which we have here. Okay, that's a bearing spin there. The actual pulley for the motor, the cog pulley, goes on there, it presses onto there. Here is the center, all the business stuff in here. Okay, you have your big gear here, and that is a magnet. That's for the position. I wound up damaging getting it out because it struck the gear. Now, I couldn't actually get it out in the first place. It is a Honeywell product, inductive sensor, Hall effect sensor. This is magnetic. So if you know the two, if this wasn't magnetic, it would be a proximity. So this is a Hall effect. It's gonna trigger that to tell it where it is. I damaged it pulling it out because it actually is in front of the gear as this whole unit has to come out. So here's the magnet here, so it's heavy. Here's the magnet, here's the gear, so it struck it. Now you're supposed to back it off, but I could not do that without damaging it anyway. So 70 bucks down the drain, but I have another one on the way right now. So that was one of the bigger issues with this unit. It kept running into that, where I believe there was just so much crap in here and or inside of the braking mechanism. So here, there's several tubes in here that divert the air. Okay, so what's happening is it's kind of clogging up in there. So that was, I'm not definitive, but there was a lot of gunk and dirt in there. So, but that's the basis of this, of what it looks like. It's relatively simple. The bearings, I want to replace this bearing, but it's not terrible. I just think there was just a little bit of crud in there. But what I noticed too, when I had this whole thing together in the machine, I had taken the cover off. I had taken this, it's a mess in here. I had taken this big side cover off, and I took the belt off, and I would spin it, and it would kind of like every quarter of a turn or half of a rotation on my hand, on the cog pulley itself, you just kind of feel it catch. So I don't know if that was a bearing issue but it also just felt kind of gritty as well. But again, there was a lot of crap on the brake side. This thing is extremely heavy. There was a lot of crap on the brake side of this. So I cleaned the bearings out, mineral spirits, kind of whole parts washer thing. Everything seemed pretty good. No noise or no binding when I put load on the bearing. So it's actually a 105 millimeter bore, 160 OD. I think it's just under an inch wide. But again, everything, the gears look great. There was no issue there. Sometimes dirt and crap gets in, and it'll wind up all over this. But everything looks really good. Like I said, the only thing that stood out to me was the brake. But I'm going to pull the camera off the tripod and kind of show you what all this stuff looks like. All right, so this is what it looks like on the inside. Let's see if I can lay it down. Gonna need a light. Some of these tubes just kind of dead end in there. I think that's the brake release, brake charge. Sorry, on the other side. But that kind of just pulses, it kind of vents out, I'm assuming. That's where actually one of these filters go into, that hole and that hole. And there's this little tiny spring there that sits in the base. I think that one's stuck in there, but sits in the base to give the, I guess, give that little filter some pressure. It's either a filter, I guess it wouldn't be a filter, because now I'm thinking about that. I think it's a wiper, because it's only on this side. I think it makes more sense to be a wiper, but I don't know. I didn't bother to even look it up. But this bearing looks good in here. It's a roller bearing for that shaft. And all this just sits literally right inside of there. There really isn't any type of thrust, applied force to it, being a worm gear. But this, I'm sure this is extremely critical, because this spaces the breakaway. You have an O-ring that goes on the outside here, both two surfaces there. There is an O-ring that goes on the face here as well. This all looks pretty good. Let me flip the camera around, or flip the part around. All right, and again, these are air supply for the brake. I think this one goes right to here. Actually, just this one here. This does nothing, because I guess depending on how Haas wanted to run it. But yeah, so this piece here is what sits back here and bolts to the back side of this. This is where your platter goes on to here. Okay, that here. You can unbolt it. It is a pretty tight tolerance. I'm surprised because there's a pin, looks like obviously a dowel pin hole here, but there's not one on here. So I'm assuming it's for a different fixture or attachment. But these do come off relatively easy. You got to tap it a little bit and wiggle it a little bit to get it off. But it's centric on this portion here. And that's it. So I guess that's enough. And obviously with the socketed cap screw bolts here, these ones here, I'm going to clean all them soon. Yeah, so that platter sits on that. But here, you would see this here. And this sits on there and spaces that away. And there's no real motion, I'm guessing, for how the brake is applied, or the motor brake. Yeah, there's no mechanical type in here. That was weird. I wonder why. Unless, it's weird, it has a solenoid on there with an in and an out, so I'm not entirely certain. Probably should have researched it, but I'm just kind of getting a first look at this after I've taken it all apart. But I will do that.